Indianxclusive എല്ലാ പ്രേക്ഷകർക്കും നമസ്കാരം. അമേരിക്കയ്ക്ക് യോജിച്ച പ്രസിഡന്റ് ആരാണ് എന്ന ഷോ തുടരുകയാണ്. ജോ ബൈഡൻ ഡെമോക്രാറ്റിക് പാർട്ടിയുടെ കാൻഡിഡേറ്റ് ആണ്. റിപ്പബ്ലിക്കൻ പാർട്ടിയുടെ കാൻഡിഡേറ്റ് ഡൊണാൾഡ് ട്രംപ്. ഇന്നത്തെ സെക്കൻഡ് പാർട്ടിലെ ചർച്ചയിൽ നമ്മോട് ചേരുന്നത് ടോം കിഴക്കേപ്പുറമാണ്. ടോം കിഴക്കേപ്പുറം അമേരിക്കയിൽ ജനിച്ചു വളർന്ന സെക്കൻഡ് ജനറേഷനിൽപ്പെട്ട ഒരാളാണ്. So hearty welcome Tom to our show.
Thank you.
അതോടൊപ്പം നമ്മോടൊപ്പം ചേരുന്നത് കഴിഞ്ഞ ചർച്ചയിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത ഡോക്ടർ ജോൺ മാത്യു നമ്മോടുകൂടെ എപ്പോഴും നമ്മളുടെ ടോക്ക് ഷോയിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നു. ഇന്ന് നമ്മളുടെ ഇവിടുത്തെ ആർഗ്യുമെന്റ്, അതായത് വിഷയം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, നമ്മൾ ആദ്യമേ തുടങ്ങുന്നത് എക്കോണമി, അതായത് ട്രംപ് ജയിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ എങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും എക്കോണമിയുടെ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാകുന്നത്. So the first question is, Tom, how can you justify and explain economy according to Trump?
Okay. President Trump's vision for the next 4 years is a continuation of the theme, Make America Great Again. The aim of all his policy agendas, including the economy, will be to benefit Americans first, and then all others. And if any existing policies expect to hurt Americans, then those policies must be re-examined. So to level set, the United States has a population of about 330 million people, representing 4.25% of the population, third to China and India, with Indonesia and Pakistan right behind. As far as the economy, in the first 4 years under Trump, GDP has roughly been about 3.8 to 3.9% growth. Revenue has been up 6%, expenses up 15%. The only way to get back to a zero deficit is to increase revenue and reduce expenses. How does Trump expect to do that? So here are the ways that he's expecting to do that in the next 4 years. He'd like to create 10 million new jobs in 10 months. New jobs equals more tax revenue. Create 1 million new small businesses who in turn create jobs. Cut taxes to boost take-home pay and keep jobs in America. Provide school choice to all American families with children in America, leading to a better future for them and better economic outcomes. Enact fair trade deals that protect American jobs. Made in America tax credits. Expand opportunity zones, which are defined as economically distressed communities where new investments under certain conditions may be eligible for preferential tax treatment. They're designed actually to spur economic development and job creation in distressed communities, particularly minorities. He also wants to continue deregulatory agenda for energy independence, bring back 1 million manufacturing jobs from China, tax credits for companies that bring back jobs from China. He also wants to allow 100% expensing deductions for essential industries like pharmaceuticals and robotics who bring back their manufacturing to the United States. And lastly, no federal contracts for companies who outsource to China.
ജോൺ മാത്യു അദ്ദേഹം പറഞ്ഞ ആ കാര്യങ്ങൾ കൂടുതൽ ജോലികൾ അമേരിക്കയിൽ സൃഷ്ടിക്കുന്നു എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഇപ്പോൾ പുറത്ത് ഇരിക്കുന്ന, അതായത് ഏഷ്യൻ കൺട്രികളിൽ, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ആഫ്രിക്കൻ കൺട്രികളിൽ ഇരിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാ ജോബുകളും, അമേരിക്കൻ ജോബ്സ് തിരിച്ച് അമേരിക്കയിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുവരുമെന്നാണ് ടോം പ്രസ്താവിക്കുന്നത്. എന്താണ് ബൈഡന്റെ ഈ പോളിസി? എക്കോണമിനെ എങ്ങനെ വളർത്തുമെന്നാണ് ബൈഡൻ പറയുന്നത്?
So there is actually a very interesting contrast between Trump and Biden. The issue has been, if you look back at the last 4 years, due to massive tax cuts to corporations and the top 1% of the people, who consumes 40% of Americans' wealth, the debt of America, the public debt of America has gone up substantially. This year with COVID, our deficit now expected to hit $3.3 trillion, which is 16% of the GDP. That is, in any standard, is an unsustainable debt. So if you look at the non-partisan Congressional Office of Budget, it shows that it is going to continue until 2030, where even after COVID, our budget deficit will be actually reaching the unsustainable range of more than 5%. So the understanding or the policies of Biden is actually heavily focused on reducing the deficit. And in order to do that, he's actually proposing to increase taxes of people who is making more than $400,000 a year, which is actually coming to the top 2% of the population. And that will give enough revenue for him to invest in infrastructure improvement and clean energy jobs, etc., over the course of next 4 to 8 years. So he's actually pledged to invest $2 trillion through the revenue that he actually generates. And the difference is that the so-called trickle-down economics, which means that you give tax cut to the top 1% of the people and somehow that trickle down to create jobs, has never worked in the past. It's only add to the deficit. It was true during the George Bush's term in 2008, as well as in Trump's term. It was good in the first 3 years, but the moment something like an external shock like COVID hit, it actually became immediately unsustainable. So the growth can actually only be accomplished when it is actually impact every part of the society, as well as increase the income of the lower class, lower economic strata is critical for the development of the country.
ഹെൽത്ത് കെയറിൽ നമ്മൾക്ക് ചർച്ച ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും ഹെൽത്ത് കെയർ ഓൾ ഓവർ ദ വേൾഡ്, അതായത് ലോകത്തുള്ള എല്ലാ രാജ്യങ്ങളിലും ഹെൽത്ത് കെയറിൽ വളരെ പരാജയങ്ങളാണ് വന്നിരിക്കുന്നത്. അൺഎക്സ്പെക്റ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കോവിഡ് മുഖാന്തരം എവരിവെയർ കൊളാപ്സ്ഡ്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഹെൽത്ത് കെയറിൽ ബൈഡന്റെ വീക്ഷണത്തിൽ എങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും ബൈഡൻ ഹെൽത്ത് കെയറിനെ പുതുക്കുക?
Okay, so in the case of healthcare, in American healthcare is very expensive, and nobody actually challenges that. But also, it actually comes with the privilege that America has one of the best healthcare systems of the world. But the problem Americans faced is that over time, the cost to get health insurance coverage, for example, became very expensive. And to counter that, Obama brought what is popularly known as Obamacare or Affordable Care Act. So the three components of Affordable Care Act are, it actually provides an affordable premium, insurance premium for about more than 20 million people who did not have healthcare coverage previously. But also the most important part of it was it actually provided coverage for more than 100 million people who actually had pre-existing conditions who otherwise was not covered by that particular, previously covered by insurance companies. And the third important thing is that any young people who will be covered under their parents' healthcare plan until they were 26. So these three pillars were critical for Obamacare. So the Biden's plan is to strengthen Obamacare, but then in order to manage the cost or the profit of insurance companies, he is actually proposing to introduce a public option. It's an option. A lot of people actually misstate that as it's a public or government's takeover of healthcare, but that's not the intent. But he gives an option, a public option, by which people could buy into insurance through the government process, like traditional Medicare, and that will create a fierce competition in the marketplace so that insurance companies will be forced to reduce their premiums in the future. So that's where he's actually going to fix one of the challenges or the issues associated with Obamacare, and yet continue to protect all the provisions of Obamacare, whereas Trump's plan actually do not have a solution to those three issues, even though they say Obamacare is not good, but they just don't have a solution to replace it. It just more talk, less details on policies.
ടോം, ഹെൽത്ത് കെയറിൽ ട്രംപ് പരാജയപ്പെട്ടു എന്നാണ് ഡെമോക്രാറ്റ്സ് പറയുന്നത്. How can you say the policies of Trump?
Yeah, so the policies around healthcare with Trump is, number one, he understands that prices in general have to come down. So, for example, he is going after prescription drug prices, first of all. How is he doing that? By allowing states to import prescription drugs that are much cheaper than what they pay now. So that also opens the door for international commerce and for international countries to become more competitive in their markets. He will also increase drug competition by continuing record approval of the largest amount of generic drugs, saving the healthcare system over $293 billion. For example, in 2017, he accelerated 937 generic drugs approved, 2018, 971, and then 2019, a record 1,171 generic drugs approved. In addition to that, He is lowering insulin copay starting in 2021 for Medicare Part D beneficiaries. So no more than a $35 copay for 30-day supply, regardless of deductibles or coverage gap considerations. He's also focusing in on lower healthcare insurance premiums, ending surprise medical billing. And you think about that, how many times have Americans been faced with surprise medical billings? He's looking to publish those costs so that people have a choice of where they go to seek care. Going back to the Affordable Care Act, Affordable Care Act is going to be with us. Now, whether or not certain parts of it will remain is really what his goal is. In 2019, he got rid of the federal mandate that forced people into a healthcare plan. While 6% of the population enrolled in an Affordable Care Act plan, there's still more work that needs to be done, and he's focused on replacing it with better benefits at lower costs while still covering all pre-existing conditions. He does oppose the Medicare for All program, which the Democrats are pushing forward, which will jeopardize Social Security and denigrate Medicare benefits for all those who spent their working lives paying into the program. He has continued to commit himself to protecting our veterans and provide world-class healthcare and services. And he also wants to continue to address the opioid crisis, so that he declared it a public emergency, and he's already accelerated funding to screen at the border and eliminate loopholes that allow Chinese fentanyl manufacturers, as you know it, who are illegally shipping much of those compounds to the USA.
Foreign relation, what is the policies of Trump?
For foreign relations, so he's got a message of promoting fair and equal trade. In addition to that, he just recently signed, his administration facilitated the Middle East Peace Treaty between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, and to include more Arab countries in the future. Benefits of this treaty include prosperity and friendly relations when it comes to healthcare, science, technology, peaceful use of outer space, culture, sport, energy, environment, education, maritime arrangements, telecommunications, agriculture, food security, water, and legal cooperation. So those are benefits that we're seeing right now. He also wants to revisit participation with the World Health Organization, pending completion of the investigation that, of course, led to the failed response to the COVID-19 outbreak. He is a proponent for stopping endless wars and bringing our troops home while expanding America's unrivaled military strength. And he wants, more importantly, for allies to pay their fair share and wipe out global terrorists who threaten to harm Americans.
Yeah, John Matthew, foreign relations.
So I think some of the issues that the world faced over the course of last 4 years is actually a failure of American leadership that used to exist in the world, whether it is in dealing with a crisis or with actually dealing with global trade, for example, because the economy is actually now global. There is no way we can go back to live in America's cocoon and say we don't want to deal with anybody outside America, because over the course of last 20 years, of course, there are a lot of outsourcing of manufacturing jobs, etc., in the world, and particularly from America. But that actually allowed America to focus on its core strength, which is innovation and bringing down new technologies and new products to the marketplace, where heavy labor-intensive jobs and type of industries are actually outsourced. And the Americans were the beneficiaries of this, because if you look at last 20 years, the overall cost of products that actually America able to buy is almost maintained at the inflationary level, and it was much cheaper than what America could actually manufacture. So Trump's policies of alienating the allies has been a big problem, and that has become more evident during the COVID crisis, because today, if you ask and if you look around, there is nobody in the world leading a fight against COVID. And traditionally, America used to occupy that role. That doesn't mean America actually spend money, but America bring the world's the forces together to fight an issue. So walking away from World Health Organization, yes, it is a good thing from a news cycle perspective, but I don't think it's good for the health of Americans or the health of the world. So those kinds of very erratic responses is what Biden is actually going to stop. So he's actually promoting, or he's actually saying that he's going to bring back America to the forefront of the world, and America is going to lead the world and in many of the activities, including economy and healthcare. And finally, trade wars never won by anybody in the world historically, and sadly, the trade war between China and America, even though people claim there was a lot of benefits, if you really look into that, America actually lost that trade war. So that's where some of the policies of Trump will not actually work in the new world economy, and Biden is actually going to take that by the horn. But at the same time, create jobs in areas where America actually can compete in the world. So those are high-tech jobs and jobs where we have actually getting into high-tech manufacturing, for example.
We have 2 minutes more. So last ആയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ പറയാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത് എൻവയൺമെന്റിനെ കുറിച്ചാണ്. നമ്മളുടെ ഈ ലോകം ശുദ്ധമായിട്ടുള്ള വായു ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളിൽ വളരെ ആവശ്യമായിട്ടുള്ള ചില സബ്ജക്റ്റുകളാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ വിഷയത്തിൽ ബൈഡൻ എന്താണ് ഉപദേശിക്കുന്നത്?
So Biden is a big proponent of clean energy, and clean energy means oil independent energy world. That's what he's actually proposing. His policy is actually calling for a carbon neutral America by 2035 and completely oil independent by 2050. And a lot of people criticize that by saying, okay, how are you going to take care of oil industry? The problem is we moved away from bullock carts a long time ago. And we moved into trains and we moved into planes. And we need to move forward from the oil dependency that actually destroyed the environment into creating much more solar, depending on solar and wind and those types of energy sources. If America is not going to lead it, other countries are going to bypass America. So if you really look at battery technology alone, in the last 20 years, we have advanced so much that nowadays cars can drive on a battery for about 500 miles before recharging. So those type of technology and that type of jobs, that's what Biden promised to create. And he's promising to create more than 10 million jobs in the energy sector. That's a clean energy sector, which actually make the environment healthy today and also for future generations, and avoid the impact of global warming, which actually Trump denies, but almost 99% of the scientists in the world agrees. That's where we actually have to look at, and we have to address that issue so that the world and it was a better place for us and our generations in the future.
Tom.
Yeah, so Trump's message with the environment is the goal being the good of Americans and helping the world. So firstly, he would like to renegotiate the Paris Agreement enacted in 2016 where possible, which addressed the global warming initiative. And he wants to allow fairness for all countries and not putting Americans at risk. Right now, it aims to substantially reduce global greenhouse gas emissions in an effort to limit the global temperature increase in this century to 2 degrees Celsius, above pre-industrial levels, while pursuing means to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees. So that in itself is the Paris Agreement, and 197 countries have joined it, but not all have submitted formalized plans. So out of those that did submit plans, about 25 countries' achievements were rated insufficient, and that did include the United States. And according to National Economic Research Associates, under that agreement and its prior commitments, Americans aimed to lose 2.7 million jobs by 2025, and by 2040, a loss of paper production by 12%, cement down by 23%, iron and steel down by 38%, coal by 86%, natural gas down by 31%. Additionally, further economic losses include $3 trillion loss in GDP, 6.5 million industrial jobs lost, and $7,000 less income for the average household. So he looks at that as, wow, this is really affecting my Americans, and does he really want to go through it, or does he want to revisit it for more reasonable goals? In the meantime, the United States Department reports that emissions of criteria air pollutants that impact human health and environment declined by 74% between 1970 and 2018. United States net greenhouse gas emissions dropped 13% from 2005 to 2017. So the United States will continue to use technologies cleanly and efficiently, including fossil fuels, nuclear energy, and renewable energy, backed by innovation and open markets, fewer emissions, and more secure sources of energy, which I think is America's goal. Trump does support fracking while complying with existing EPA standards and oversight defining. Fracturing, which is defined, for those who don't know, fracking is the fracturing of bedrock formations by a pressurized liquid through which natural gas, petroleum, and brine will flow more freely. And so with that, there's already existing regulations there and that help to mitigate any losses that might come out of fracking, whether it's tort law or these existing EPA standards. He also does want to continue to lead the world in access to the cleanest drinking water and cleanest air, and partner with other nations to clean up the planet's oceans.
Okay, thank you. The last one question, you can say in one word. American dream was always an inspiration for all youth and all generations. The American dreams നാളെയും ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കുമോ? Tom.
Oh, yes. So the American dream in the beginning was a place to flourish immigration, to flourish free markets, to flourish freedom, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So the question is, do you want the government to be a big part of it or a small part of it? And that's really the question that all Americans have to answer is, do you want the luxury to live a life as free as you want? Or do you want...
No, I am talking about the immigration. I mean, people can come to America.
Oh, okay, immigration. Yeah, I think it'll definitely be attractive, but Trump itself has not repealed any immigration laws. Has he made it harder for some countries? Yes, based on certain parameters that, certain countries who are defined as, as sponsoring state, Islamic terrorism, those types of things. But that doesn't mean immigration is completely closed. So immigration is definitely open.
Okay, thank you. John Matthew.
So I think Trump's immigration policies were very erratic over the course of last 4 years, and he has been keep on signing executive orders that actually didn't make, sometimes absolutely didn't make any sense. But the reality is, American dream is what brought me and also probably Tom's parents into this country. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And this country used to welcome all immigrants. And I think we should actually continue to welcome immigrants. But I think for some changes actually probably is inevitable, because illegal immigration is not something that actually should be encouraged or should be accepted as the norm. But at the same time, this also is actually, interesting to note that most of these illegal immigrants are working in Republican states in the farms, because that's why we get farm products cheaper. So there are ways by which we can certainly improve immigrations, but then focus on areas where immigration can continue to benefit America by focusing on high-skilled workers. Even Trump actually made it extremely difficult for job visa holders to come and renew their visas, etc. These are high-paying jobs and high technology field where America don't have enough resources actually to compete in the world. So all of that needs to continue, but what it requires is a very focused but comprehensive immigration reform, which is difficult, but nobody has focused on it. Trump had both Congress and Senate on his side, but he couldn't accomplish that. It's a lot more talk than action. That's what I would say.
Okay, രണ്ടുപേരുടെയും വാദങ്ങൾ വളരെ ശക്തമായിരുന്നു. നമുക്ക് നല്ല നേതാക്കന്മാരെ പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കാം, കഴിവുള്ളവർ ജയിക്കട്ടെ, അത് മാത്രമാണ് നമ്മളുടെ ആശംസകൾ. രണ്ടുപേർക്കും പ്രത്യേകം നന്ദി. ഹാർട്ടി താങ്ക് യു ഫോർ ഓൾ ആൻഡ് ഹാവ് എ നൈസ് ഈവനിങ്.
Thank you, Dr. Jose.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
കൂടുതൽ വിശേഷങ്ങളും കണ്ടെത്തലുകളും അറിയുവാൻ ഇന്ത്യൻ എക്സ്ക്ലൂസീവ് ചാനൽ സബ്സ്ക്രൈബ് ചെയ്യൂ. ഇന്ത്യൻ എക്സ്ക്ലൂസീവ്, exclusive discoveries of the world.